But switching gears here a little bit, Jeremy, who is the player on the Lions who you believe has the most at stake this season going into it?
Man, there's a lot of them. Because I think there are a lot of players that are kind of at the fork in the road of their career. But I have to go with the one that probably will have the biggest impact, either positive or negative, on the Lions, and I think it's Jameson Williams. I think you can forgive everything that's happened in the first 2 years of his career. Obviously, his rookie season was never going to amount to much, and it was unfortunate how things played out early in his second season with his suspension and kind of a slow get up from there. But we saw some real progress towards the end of last year. I saw some progress in the spring. And so I think how he performs this year as essentially the number two receiver, really I think is going to play out to whether the Lions, like, I think if he doesn't live up to his billing, I think the Lions need to start looking for their next number two wide receiver next offseason. If he balls out, great. You have that settled, and you probably, exercise his fifth year option right away and things like that. So it really could go either way. I tend to be a little bit more optimistic about him, certainly more than I was at this point last year. So I think he has all the tools there. I think he's an extremely hard worker. It's just a matter of putting it together consistently, because again, it's one thing to have the flashes, which he absolutely did towards the end of last season. It's another thing to do it consistently, and that's so important to this coaching staff, to build a level of trust, to have the player out there. They need to be able to not just catch the ball, not just make the big plays, but run their routes, Chris. Be where he needs to be in every single play, whether the ball is coming to him or not. Blocking downfield, which we know for sure he's got the will. Like, there's no question Jameson Williams is going to love putting a guy on his back. It's just a matter of technique, being in the right place, and things like that. And those are things that I think he's starting to hammer out.
Yeah, and to your point, I think everyone's pretty much over the gambling thing. It's over and done with.
Sure.
I think that we all see the big play potential. Obviously, last year we heard a lot of criticism on his hands and his ability to pull in balls, and I think he silenced that over the year. But going into it, in my eyes, I think route running is still his big thing. He's got to really hamper down on and just, more crisp, like you said.
Yeah.
Do you think that's his biggest hurdle right now?
I think so, yeah. But I think it's also something that I've already started to see progress on. And I think maybe the most promising thing was just him actually talking about it this offseason, and talking about, like, when he was at Alabama, like, he could get from point A to point B however he wanted, right? He could ad lib a little bit. It was just a matter of, like, using those physical tools to create separation in any way he can. But the one thing that we've heard time and time again from basically every skill position player that has gone through the Ben Johnson offense is, it is so technical, it is so precise, that every single step matters. You need to be right where you are when you need to be there. Something that Antoine Randall always says is, like, it's not just where you are, but when you get there. All of that is so meticulous and important. And I think Jameson Williams really recognizes that now. And so, again, I've never had any question about his work ethic. So now, to me, that, like, the goal is put in front of him. He understands everything, all the nuances of the offense. I think it's only a matter of time before he gets there. I really do.
Do you think they dummied down his routes last year to get
Maybe.
him the ball more?
Yeah, I mean, especially earlier in the season, like, it was a lot of clean out routes, right? It was a lot of nines, it was a lot of deep posts, things like that, where you're just utilizing his speed. Like, just go out there, either create space in the middle of the field for the other guys, or we'll take an occasional shot for as they would with most players. Like, it's just, let's ease you in. You see it with a lot of rookies, right? They say it all the time. Like, Jack Campbell last year, they tried to put him on the edge a little bit in the middle of the season when the injury bug was in, and then they scaled that back. Brian Branch, a guy that they clearly want to play at some safety, they dialed it back and said, you know what, you're really good at nickel right now. Let's just have you play nickel. And so I think they treated last year very much kind of like a rookie season for Jameson Williams, and they're like, run nines, just run as fast as you can down the field. Maybe you'll get the ball, maybe you're not, but you're going to create space. And then, as kind of everything started to click a little bit, you saw a little bit more creativity in the way they used him.
Very similar route tree to Watson. That's why
Right.
I'm asking. It's,
Yeah.
let's just get him the ball. His speed will win out
Exactly.
for him. And then you got to see more from those kind of guys. So same
No
thing with
question.
Watson. They're looking for that jump. So we'll see what happens.
And I have to ask almost for the meme at this point. Is Jameson doing the jugs machine like more than Amon Ra, as much as Amon Ra, not at all? What's going on?
Not as much for sure. That's a high bar to set, but like I said, like I've never really had an issue with his work ethic. Maybe he's not doing the jugs machine, but he's out there early in practice. He's putting in the work. I don't see him lollygagging or anything like that. But yeah, if you're gonna if your work ethic is gonna be compared to Amon-Ra St. Brown, you're gonna lose, and yeah, he doesn't quite have that in him.
He's outworking everybody.
Yeah.
I was gonna say when they were counting the amount of balls that came out of the jug machine for him after suspension, I'm like, are we really doing this? Like, I'm not even a Lions fan, and I'm like,
Right.
come on, let's ease it back a little.
And it's also silly to think that the jugs machine is the only way that you could possibly work on your hands.
Yeah.
Like there's other technical stuff that you have to do, and it's not just about catching it in front of you like that. Like one problem that I think Jameson Williams really had was tracking overhead. Like you don't really get that from a jugs machine. That you have to practice that in a completely different way. And so I don't know, like the jugs machine just became like this obsession ever since Amon-Ra has been in town. If you're not doing it, like you're not working hard enough, which is not at all true.
No, I agree. The thing that I loved, just to touch real quick before we move on from Jameson, is in mini camps when he gave that interview and he touched on his mentality and just getting rid of kind of the childish ways that he may have brought with him from, college or whatever. Like it sounds to me like he's matured a lot over this last year, and he understands, kind of to touch on what you were saying, that hey, I need to work on a few things, that my raw God-given ability is just not going to win it for me every time. I do have to perfect it. So I'm optimistic about this season as well, just because I can kind of see that switch in mentality,
Yeah, for sure. And listen, like he's not going to lose kind of that childish wonder that I think he has. I think that's part of his charm and what makes him unique and fun. But yeah, like he's also, when he walks through the doors, he's going to put in the work.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're right. Like we have seen, in particular with, I think, like the kind of things that he's focusing on, I think that's where I've seen the most maturation out of just his attitude.